I know about you is that you have ambition to be great. My job is to coach you to get all that greatness out of you.
What's good, Finn Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one in a rare Saturday evening appearance. Just some stuff I wanted to get off my chest tonight. I got a couple things I wanted to talk about. I actually wasn't able to go live yesterday. If some of you had remembered that not only was it my wife's birthday on the 16th, but we had been planning to go out yesterday since basically before her birthday. So that was like our date birthday dinner. So I took her out to a nice spot. Nonetheless, we got some things I want to talk about today. First thing I want to talk about is my rant today. It's actually going to be a little bit different. Usually there's a topic, something I'm not happy with, and I kind of go in on it. Today it's kind of different because I've been sitting back and I've been thinking about something for a couple of days, and I want to talk about it. Then I really want to get into this. I got clips from FS1, from ESPN, from the NFL Network. I really want to talk about the narrative after we traded for Tyreek Hill and how it became really. By the way, shout out to Fred for the donation right before we started. But I want to talk about the media's narrative, and shout out to Antonio Hill for becoming a member. I want to talk about the media's narrative about Tua. I really want to talk about that heavily. So we're going to talk about that. Then I got a bunch of other stuff we're going to talk about, in terms of the top spenders and guaranteed money so far. And obviously the Dolphins made some restructuring moves. We'll talk about their current cap situation, all that kind of jazz. So let's start off with Mike McDaniel. Already 215 of you in the room. Go ahead, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new. We are on our way to 8K. I actually did not share this on Twitter. I just went live. I was really busy and I was piecing everything together. I just really didn't get along. So, guys, if you are on Twitter, share it on Twitter. Do it for me because I didn't have a chance to send out my usual tweet today. But let's start off talking about Mike McDaniel because I really want to start something here. And I really want to prepare everyone. So I think I'm starting to get a grasp of what the plan is offensively for the Miami Dolphins. And I mean, you guys remember me and EM, we were all over the schematics and everything of what the offense was going to look like, whether it was under Chad O'Shea or Changeli. Shout out to Samuel for the 1999 super sticker. Appreciate you, homie. So I want to, and there's some Deebo talk in here, so follow me along. So you look at what we're starting to put together. All right. So you look at Tyreek Hill and Waddle, both, sub 4.3, 4.2 guys. Okay. You look at Mozart, a guy who runs in the 4.3s. Bowden, he's been clocked in the 4.3s that perform. Gesicki, the big body guy, can still run a 4.46, 4.48, whatever it was. You look at Cedric Wilson and Chase Edmonds. They're both 4.5 guys, but they look much faster on tape. And you look at, even the offensive linemen, like you look at Terran Armstead, who the guy runs like a 4.7 at his size. And you look at Connor Williams. And then you look at Hunt. And then you look at Dieter if he sticks. And you also look at Jackson if he sticks at right tackle, which I've been warning y'all about, which it seems Jackson at right tackle is going to be the move. It seems as if this is the plan and this is the idea. It seems as if, okay, the Shanahan offense, to the extent it's going to be run that outside wide zone with the concepts and stuff, really hasn't really been prevalent in the AFC since Mike Shanahan was around, and it's way more evolved than what it was when Mike Shanahan was around. So really that offense, the offense McDaniel is looking to incorporate here, where you stick the game flow to one side, for the majority of the game. Then you send the defense some false keys. You get some half steps, maybe some full half steps. Full false steps from defenders up in the box. Then bam, you go to the other side. You switch the game flow to the right and you caught some sleeping, you score. You look at, obviously, screens are going to be a big thing. You look at what you can do underneath to get people into space, obviously mesh level concepts, all this kind of jazz. So, when you look at what we're creating right now, obviously the RPOs coming in, true play actions, read options are going to be sprinkled in. So anyways, you see all of this stuff and combined what we're doing. Here's the thing. Not only has the AFC not really had to deal with what we're going to be throwing at them schematically, but the thing that's happening now is the AFC really hasn't seen this blend of speed and athleticism. I mean, I get it. I know we can talk about, for example, I know we can talk about the speed and the athleticism that was obviously had by the Kansas City Chiefs on their runs. I get all that. But the problem is, like, once you get past Tyreek Hill, who obviously is now on our team, my thing is, once you get past Tyreek, that's when you start running into issues. Like Demarcus Robinson and McCall Hardman, sure, they're burners. But do they have the hands? Are they the dependable receivers of the Jalen Waddles and the Cedric Wilsons and the Lynn Bowden? No, they're not. So when you kind of start seeing what they're trying to do here, it kind of, it looks like they're taking, his whole concept is, okay, the Shanahan offense can not only take the AFC by storm, but I also saw how speed can take the AFC by storm. And it looks like he's blending those concepts of, okay, if I just throw this speed and this athleticism at them, what are they going to do? How are they going to handle that? I think it becomes a real issue. And I see what the vision is. Hold on a sec here. Give me 1 sec, guys. Okay, so when you take everything into account, right? Okay, so what are these guys going to do? What are defenses going to do? Okay, clearly they're going to go to high safeties. But here's the issue. You want to go too high safety on us. That's all cute. That's dandy. The problem that happens when you go with a too high safety look on us is now we got the speed underneath. And we got the speed coming out of the backfield underneath. And that is, how are you going to handle that? It's one thing when you try and have speed and bodies to cover us. But how are you going to find enough bodies to cover us? And you can't double anyone. You can't press against us. If you press us, we're just going to go over top of you. Just like if we keep eating you up underneath and you pull a safety up into the box, we can go over top of you again. That's the whole game, is to draw someone up like that. So, anyways, all right. So McDaniel's offense and where I was at. I really believe that this year is all going to be about implementing an offense that kind of takes the AFC by storm, in the sense of they haven't seen this combination of athleticism and speed used in the way it's going to be used at. And the issue is it's happening at every level. And now what's going on is, the whole Deebo talk, in regard to everything with Deebo. I've been told privately, basically, that basically what's happening with Deebo is this, that, a player has told someone that I know, it's gotten back to me, that a player has basically said after the Hill trade that, from what he knows, they're still chasing Deebo down. So this has come from a player's mouth now. You got players out here basically saying, hey, yeah, it's going down. From what I've heard, it's going down. And, from what I understand, there's a couple names in that, and there's going to be contracts going back, so the money works. But Deebo this year only makes about $4.8 million. He only makes $4.8 million. So that's where we're at with Deebo. Now, I'm going to reinstate, I'm going to talk about again what I said about with McDaniel in this offense. You look at, they're going to try and take the flow of the game to one side, obviously. And then they're just going to hit you with false keys, and they're going to come to the other side of you. And what they're going to do is, going to get a lot of too high shell looks, and they're going to draw a safety up. And once they draw that safety up, bang, they're over top of you. You can't play press against this athleticism. Again, Waddle, Tyreek, guys who can run it in the 4-2. Bowden and Mozart, guys who've been clocked in 4-3. Gesicki, 4-4. Right? Cedric Wilson, Chase Edmonds, they 4-5 guys, but they play like they're 4-4. You can see what the vision is right now. The vision is hit him with a blend of speed and athleticism in a system that the AFC's never seen before. And what that's going to do is create a adjustment and learning curve for coordinators and opposing defenses. And that's what we're going to run into here. What we're going to run into is corners and opposing defenses. They're not going to be able to adapt right away, especially teams that only see us once a year. It's going to be this. Now, it's not going to be gimmicky like the Wildcat, but it's the same concept if it took defenses a little bit to kind of catch up. That's what the whole plan here is. Keep the defenses intact, that can get the job done, that can get us extra possessions, that can hold other offenses, to 17 to 22, 23 points, and then hit them with an offense that they don't know what they're getting hit with. That's just going to put up points at any given time. That's what the whole concept of this is. And, when you sit back and you actually, start thinking about it, I'm telling you, it's brilliant. Like, this is the work of like a mastermind. And then think of it. By the time everyone catches up, you've already created new wrinkles. And now you throw the new wrinkles at them. And when the wrinkles come, now they got to adjust to that. Because here's the thing. Listen, again, I'm going to name them again. I want to pump these in your head. Waddle and Tyreek Hill, 4-2. Mozart and Bowden, 4-3. Gesicki, 4-4. Okay, Cedric Wilson, Chase Edmonds play at 4-5, but if you watch on tape, they look like they're 4-4 on tape. 7, who's going to match up with that? That would mean a team in the minimum would need to have a quarters package in a 4-3 defense where the second level and the 4 DBs are all in those speed ranges. Where are you going to find a defense like that? Where are you going to find a defense like that? That's what I can't get past. Like, stick to the receivers right now. Let's just stick to the receivers. Okay? Waddle, Bowden, Tyreek, and Cedric. Cedric plays at 4-4, even though he's like 4-5. Waddle and Tyreek are 4-2. Bowden's like 4-3. Where are you going to find a stable of 4 corners who are reliable, dependable, and move like that? Then you got to find a linebacker that can keep up with Gesicki if I put him in line, who's running a 4.48 at his size. Who's keeping up with that? Even if Moser gets hurt, I can slot in Ahmed, who's another 4.4 guy. That's what Ahmed's a 4.4 guy. Ahmed, he ran a 4.37, and then he was hurt at the combine and he ran like a 4.5 or a 4.6. But he had been clocked at a 4.37 prior to the combine, but he was hurt at the combine. So now what do you do? Don't this is what I'm saying. The AFC has not seen a matchup nightmare like this. And then when you add in the scheme and what they're going to be asked to execute and do in this offense, now it's even scarier. What's the chance we get Deebo? I'll tell you this much. If Deebo isn't traded to the Miami Dolphins this year, I won't be shocked if he's a Dolphin next year. But again, I know people are like, hey, well, what Deebo? There's a role for Deebo. Doesn't everyone see what's going on? Guys, we haven't added a third down back. We haven't added a guy to give the ball to inside the 5-yard line. We haven't added a guy to give the ball to on 3rd and 1. That's what they used Deebo for last season. This is a guy who can get 6 to 8 targets and he can get 8 to 10 carries. Now, I still think, hey, if they don't get Deebo, they're going to try and probably add a guy on day 2 or day 3 in the draft. But that hasn't anyone wondered why they let me put it this way. After Armstead and even before Armstead, every move has been strategic. You look at everything they've done, everything has been strategic, everything makes sense now that you put in the picture. Why haven't they found a third down guy? That's what I'm still trying to get. Why haven't they added a third down back? Ahmed and Gaskin aren't that. Edmonds and Moser aren't that. Are you going to give it to Alec Ingold every time on third down? Maybe, but I don't think so. So, no, Jared Dokes is done. Jared Dokes is done, guys. That's not his guy. Jared Dokes is done. So, you sit here and you look, and that's why the Deebo's lingering around. Philip Lindsay is not on the team right now, guys. He's a free agent. You'd have to sign Philip Lindsay. Same thing with Duke Johnson. Well, who's gone. So that's what makes sense. When you sit back and you look at the scope of things, you're like, okay, I see the vision. is you're going to mix a blend of speed and athleticism with a system that hasn't had to have been defended at a consistent basis or really been seen consistently in the AFC. That's what the plan is. And I know, you go back to this, like, I think Tua is going to be successful. I really do. But now you understand why the intrigue of adding a Lamar Jackson, if Tua doesn't work out, makes sense for them. Because now you're adding that speed and athletic. Now, I don't like him as a passer, but you're adding that speed and athleticism, to the final position that doesn't have it right now. Because Bridgewater doesn't offer it you either right now. Now, I think Tua is going to be fine because everything you have, he's just going to facilitate the football. He's going to be that point guard we wanted him to be. I'm not worried about Tua. He'll be fine. But God forbid something happens, something goes awry. That's where you understand the intrigue now of, okay, they're just throwing speed and athleticism. That's what it is. It's be as, plentiful with speed and athleticism as at every position. Because Terran Armstead, Connor Williams, Robert Hunt for his size, Austin Jackson's athletic profile. It's everywhere. When you look, it is everywhere except the quarterback position. Now, I still think Tua is a good athlete. I still think he's more than sufficient enough on the athleticism side. But when you look at it, it's everywhere. It's literally everywhere. That's the plan. Catch him off guard with a system they don't know how to defend in the AFC, and give them a blend of athleticism and speed that they've never seen in this system. Even if you put on the Shanahan tape, you're not seeing the speed and athleticism. He didn't have as many toys at his disposal to use. That's the major wrinkle he's throwing at you. So, yeah, Tua's athletic, but to say he's on Lamar Jackson's athleticism, you're gonna lie to yourself to make yourself feel better? So that's what the that to me is what the vision is saying. It's going to be speed and athleticism at every position. It's why it's why I told y'all Pickens made sense as an X, because of his athletic profile. So no, J Boy, Tua is not top 10 athlete at the quarterback position. That is incorrect. So, you look at that and, as it's starting to come together, that's kind of what it makes sense for me. And, I really do think there's going to be a learning curve. I think there's going to be an adaptation period. No, Albert Wilson's not on the team. I think it's going to take defenses time to catch up to our offense. And because of that this year, I fully expect Tua to have a very successful season. I think Tua is going to have a really good year this year. So, I just you line it up and it's like how can't he? With what they're trying to do, with the offense they're trying to implement, with the personnel they've surrounded with him, with the staff they've surrounded with him, I just don't see how he's not going to be successful this year. I really don't. I will be shocked. I will be shocked if Tua is not successful this year. I really will be. And, I know the media has started to try and try and pivot this whole Tyreek thing into coming at Tua, which I don't get. And there's some stuff I want to talk about here. And let's talk about this. So I got some videos I want to go over here. Let's get it rolling here. Let's start with Rick Bucher. Absolute idiot. Let's see the two things he said this week. Okay, I want to play this stuff for you. These two things he played this week that he said this week, it's unbelievable. On Speak for Yourself. Check this out.
Tyreek Hill, you kind of become irrelevant now at this point because you're going to the Miami Dolphins. This is not like Davante Adams going to the Raiders. This is you're going to.
Are you serious right now? Irrelevant? This isn't like going to the Raiders? Are we seriously having this discussion right now? We have a better offense than the Raiders. Dude, I think Derek Carr is a damn good quarterback. Not taking anything away from him. Everyone knows I love Darren Waller. I think he's better than Gesicki. But once you get past that, what are we dealing with here? They got freaking Alex Leatherwood starting on their offensive line right now. I love Josh Jacobs, but really, they got 3 players on their offense. What are we talking about here? What the receiving core behind Tyreek Hill compared to Davante Adams is not even comparable. Hunter Renfrow, everyone knows I love him. He's one of my favorite slot guys in the NFL. But I'm taking Waddle over him. I'm taking Cedric Wilson over him. Stop this.
The Miami Dolphins, at best,
Irrelevant.
the third best team in that division.
Third best team in the division, this guy says. So I assume he means the Bills. You think the Patriots are better than us right now? Have you not? Guy, the defenses might be comparable in a sense, but are they really after J.C. Jackson left? Their secondary is nowhere near as good as our secondary, okay? Our secondary tears their ass apart. Number 2, you think their offense is as good as ours? Their top receivers, who? What do you want to say? Jacoby Myers? Nelson Aguilar? Cedric Wilson's better than their top guys. Lynn Bowden's better than their top guys. Seriously?
And in the AFC, which, as we know, is loaded with talent.
Third best team in the
Tyreek
division.
Hill,
What are you smoking?
Good luck. I'm glad you got paid. And I don't blame him for leaving because I don't know that he could have gotten paid with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not mad at him. But the reality is life's going to be a lot different for Tyreek Hill. He's going to have to enjoy location and the paycheck because...
Yeah, you're going to enjoy both while he's winning and his quarterback balling out, you freaking goof.
He's not going to enjoy the same success.
That ain't all.
So, I said I don't think he's going to be 1,600 to 1,500 yards a season anymore, but that's because there's ball to go around. I think he's going to be an 1,100 to 1,200 yard guy. I think Waddle's going to be 1,000 to 1,100 yard guy. I think Wilson and Gesicki are going to be 575 to 725 each of them. I think Lynn Bowden is going to be another guy who's 400 to 550 yards. So, and then you got Mozart and Edmonds are going to get the ball out of the backfield in the air. They could be 150 to 250, 300 yards each of them. Right there on the low end of all those numbers I gave you, Tua is flirting with 4,000, like over 3,500 just on that. What are we talking about here? And guess what? Tyreek's going to get more space than he had. He's going to get more space than he had because now they got to worry about Waddle. Let's say Kelsey and Gesicki cancel each other out. You weren't worrying for someone like Waddle like that. Hell, were people worrying about McCall Hardman and Demarcus Robinson like they're going to for Cedric Wilson, who's a better pass catcher than those guys? Lynn Bowden's a better pass catcher than those guys. Like, Tyreek Hill's going to be in more space. What are we talking about here? There's going to be more chances for Tyreek to take balls to the house, just like Waddle's going to have chances to take balls to the house now. Like, what are we talking about here? And I'm going to do this for every one of these videos. Other than that, I've got some videos that shed positive light. But let's continue with the nonsense.
I don't know that Tyreek Hill can make a big enough difference. I don't know that any of the pieces that they added offensively can make a big enough.
Are we serious now? You think Tyreek Hill, if you exclude quarterbacks, he's a top 5 player in the NFL. You don't think he can make a big difference being added to an offense? Are we serious right now? Is that the levels we're getting to?
Enough difference because you still have a huge question mark at quarterback and the ability of Tua Tagovailoa to take advantage of all that additional talent. So it depends on what you mean by compete.
They're laughing at
compete
him.
For the division.
The two guys who played, TJ Hushmanzada and Marcus Wiley, are laughing at him. The guys who actually played the NFL game are laughing at this man. Rick Bucher, or whatever his name is. They're laughing at you, bro. They think you're a joke. Because anyone who's played this sport, just because you know where to put a period and a comma in a paragraph in a sentence doesn't mean you know what you're talking about when you write or talk about sports, okay? Even a guy like me, a backup jabroni in Canadian college out here, knows this guy's lost his rocker.
Title? Absolutely not. Compete for a playoff spot? Oh, probably not. And
you think we can't? This guy thinks we can't compete for a playoff spot. Do you see this stuff? Do you see this stuff? We are letting people up here who don't know what they're talking about give off the impression they know what they're talking about and try to talk to the audience. That's what's wrong with the media. You got a bunch of guys out there who don't know what they're talking about, out of their depth, giving off the impression they know what they're talking about, all because they can't admit they don't know what they're talking about.
And anything beyond that, okay, you can have it as a consolation prize.
Anything beyond that. You know what I'm going to call this segment when people look at it? Rick Bucher's an idiot. Because that's actually the title of that video clip I put together there. Tyreek Hill's irrelevant? Is that what we're doing for clicks and views now? You wonder why people are coming to YouTube and other media outlets and don't want to watch you people. Because you allow that garbage up on TV. Two out here catching strays. And we're going to sit here and act like he wasn't throwing to 4-2, 4-3 guys all day at Bama. It's not about arm strength. It's about timing and touch. Stop this right now. He had no problem throwing to Waddle last year. Why is Tyreek all of a sudden going to be an issue? Let's keep it rolling here because this is just let's talk about now. Let's get into everyone's favorite because this was a big one here, obviously. Let's see what good old Stephen A. and Louis Riddick had to say.
Tua. I always have been. I don't know Mike McDaniel. I believe, though, he comes from a system and his training and his pedigree in the NFL is one that is top-notch and has led to offenses being very, very productive. And there's no question they have a lot of speed here. But there's a lot of things that have to break the right way in order for this offense to take the next step. And I'm just hoping that people evaluate Tua in that context and not just go, well, this is pass or fail for Tua. If they don't make the playoffs, if he doesn't throw for 4,000 yards and his yards per attempt aren't up there around 8, then it's a fail. No, there's a lot of things that have to happen, but there's no question that Tua has a lot of responsibility for this. I think he's up to the task.
So what Louis Riddick is basically saying, okay, yes, Tua's got all the weapons around him. Yes, some of the responsibilities on his shoulder, but also McDaniel's in year one he's gonna be trying to figure it out as a coach in year one, which I agree to. That's why you surround yourself with a bunch of veteran guys who have been there, done that, like a Darrell Bevel, all these guys. You surround yourself with guys you can lean on, which I think McDaniel's done a fantastic job of. So I agree with that to an extent. There's a multiple reasons why I expect success in year one under McDaniel. And it's because not only the people he surrounded himself with, not only because of his vision, his scheme and implementing it, and the AFC never really having to deal with it before. Not only all of that, but I've said this before, he's OCD. And I know you might laugh when I say that, but I'm saying that because I know he's OCD to the extent of everything needs to be perfect. He's a perfectionist. And when you're dealing with that kind of perfectionist, they are going to make sure they have a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. You know what I mean? They got a plan for the plan that doesn't work if things go wrong. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. That's where I'm at, because I know how big of a perfectionist and how OCD he is. I know he's got a plan for the plan that might not work. And he's got a plan for that plan too. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at. You know what I mean? That's how I see this. That's why I think he's going to be successful, amongst other things. But I think that's a thing that's being really underlooked because, you know, it's not so obvious, but it's also like a personality trait. It's like a quirk. You know what I mean? So that's what I think. But anyways, here we go. And Shanley's right. You know, even when they did cover Waddle, look what he did to Marlon Humphrey. He turned him inside out.
I mean, damn, Mr. Chippendales, you got a whole bunch of ifs in that diatribe you just put out there, that little soliloquy. I mean, there's about 15 ifs up in there, man. I mean, come on, man. Come on, Louis Riddick. I mean, how many ifs did you go throw out there? I mean, the answer's no, okay? The answer's no, all right? That's really what it comes down to. I'll get direct with you. You know good and damn well this is the problem. And here's what the problem is right here. I love Tua, the person.
Okay, this is about to be the worst counterpoint you've ever heard in your life. Stephen A is about to hold it against Tua for the Dolphins doing what you're supposed to do when you draft a guy at number 5 overall. Listen to what he says as his argument.
I went down to visit them at Alabama. I was a huge fan of his when he was at Alabama. I wish him nothing but the best. But that miniature size that he brings behind center is an impediment to
miniature size. He's the same height as Drew Brees. He's tall. He's tall. You've seen him and Wilson on cleats together. He's taller than Russell Wilson. And he's just as thick as Russell Wilson. So I just compared him to two guys who have won Super Bowls in the last 15 years. But Tua is miniature. Okay. Seriously? That's where we're at? Okay.
His success. That is the bottom line. The man didn't even throw for 3,000 yards. He threw for 2,600 yards. Yeah, he's completing about 66% of his passes because he's throwing the ball 2 or 3 yards at a time. He rarely, if ever, throws the damn ball downfield. Poor Jalen Waddle, even though he's had 1,000-yard receiving, probably would have had 1,600 yards receiving if somebody like a Justin Herbert or a Joe Burrow or even a Derek Carr was his damn quarterback. That's the situation here. And this is the part that I'm shocked. I'm actually shocked that Louis Riddick, the football aficionado, the brilliant football mind that you are, I'm shocked that you didn't bring this up.
Here we go. Look at his point.
You
this
know
is the worst point ever.
Well what this is about. This is about the Miami Dolphins trying to justify. They're holding on for dear life. They had the 5th pick. They went with Tua. The 6th pick was Justin Herbert. They passed up on them. And the reason I'm bringing that up, because you know how teams can be. Some teams like Seattle can pay a cat millions upon millions of dollars. Russell Wilson can come in there, show out in training camp, and they like the hell with that. This is the direction that we're going in, which is what they did years ago, 10 years ago or so, when they had Russell Wilson. But rarely do you see teams do that. What they usually do is they try to double down on showing how brilliant they were, how they made the right decision. We could make this work. And that's what this is about in Miami right now. This is about surrounding Tua with the weapons to try and make Tua look good. But he might.
This is about surrounding Tua with the weapons to make him look good. This is the argument. What do you think Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, C.J. Uzomah, and Joe Mixon did? What do you think Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, Hunter Henry in year one did for Justin Herbert? Like, is this the new level of our, this is about the Dolphins thinking they can get it right and about surrounding him with the weapons to make him look good. That's the argument we're going with right now. That's where we're at in this situation. That's the level these agendas and narratives are going to. That is the dumbest thing. And I want Louis Riddick. Take it away.
Be the guy.
But that's what you're supposed to do anyway, Stephen A.
Yes! That's what you're supposed to do! And this guy puts up his hand like he's waving bye-bye to all the credibility he's ever had. Holy shnikes. That's where we're at right now. That is the new movement. Oh, the Dolphins, they believe they can get him right, and they're just surrounding him with talent to look good. Let's be real. Okay, let's be real. Yes, you do that with any quarterback. The Bengals just did it with Burrow. The Chargers have done it since day one with Herbert. Feels good that my team actually finally did it. All it took was sending Flores packing, but we did it. And we're doing it. And if Tua don't work out this year, then the next guy gets to reap all these benefits. And the next guy's set up for success. So we don't have to go through the 2 years we went through with Tua where he wasn't being properly surrounded and we couldn't get a proper gauge and evaluation on his ceiling in the NFL. Think if he would have had this by day one. If he would have had this from year one, would we even be talking about this in year three? By year three, we would know he's the guy already or not. We would have known that he was the guy already by last year. And he probably would have already shown us he was the guy. Holy. Okay, so now we're starting to cover the basics here, okay? So now we've covered FS1, we've covered ESPN. So I guess the NFL Network decided, hey, it's my turn. And it's not even really, it's more so the chick in this thing. And we're going to pivot back to FS1 in a second here. But it's really more so the chick for a sec, all right? And pardon me, I don't know her name. She's on the NFL Network. I don't know her name. And after this, I don't want to know her name. You guys can drop her name. Or the lady, I should say, sorry. So I don't know this lady's name. I don't want to know this lady's name after this. I got no interest. So here's what they had to say. And obviously they're going to bring this topic up. You knew this was coming.
I would say not. I would say because with Tua,
Jimmy Garoppolo,
you have a young quarterback, like pretty much going to be 2-year starter in this league. Do we really know what Tua is, right?
And I agree.
You had a system. That system's changing right now. They're going to have the San Francisco system that's going to be implemented. So bringing Tyreek Hill in is a guy that's hype. Maybe they'll use like Deebo Samuel. Bring in that left tackle. Bring in receivers. Bring in running backs that you can run the football where a lot of pressure is not going to be on Tua. I think when you're developing these young quarterbacks, it takes maybe 40 years to see what they really are, what they can be. Now, everybody's not like Joe Burrow is going to come in the league, light it up, and we're talking MVP or throwing for all.
See, I don't agree with that. Joe Burrow did not come in the league and light it up. Actually, after their first year, there really wasn't a gap between Tua and Burrow. The difference was the investment the Bengals made after year one in Burrow and surrounding him is something we haven't decided to make till Tua entering year 3. So technically, due to incompetence from our front office and our former regime, we are a year behind where Burrow was. Continuing on.
All these yards and touchdowns, but guys like this who haven't been in a consistent system, who haven't had a consistent play caller that can develop them, I would say probably not. He's probably not, because we know that Tua is very, very talented, just not consistent.
Jimmy is not,
and he hasn't been on the field long enough to show that consistency.
Consistency is the
when
issue.
I talk about consistency, I think about
though.
coaching consistency.
Right.
Here we
and
go.
I actually think something interesting here that could be a good strategy. I mean,
Do
look,
you?
the Dolphins are clearly rolling the Brinks truck out and deciding to pay people. So it seems like they're in a strategy of winning now, favoring wins now over
Where
the
are we
future.
gonna get
So
this money?
when I look at this one, maybe bring in Jimmy G, keep Tua, keep that nice familiarity from coaching staff that
Bring in Jimmy G and keep Tua. First of all, she thinks we're going to create like 20 or 30 million to pay this guy. Second of all, what didn't we just sign Bridgewater? Like, what are we saying right here? Cynthia Froyland. That's a name I could have gone without knowing. This is terrible. Why would you bring in Jimmy G when you already have Teddy Bridgewater? Like, why are we even talking about this? Do you see the nonsense here? Like, now we're getting to the stage of, oh, Jimmy G. Come on, man.
came over from the 49ers and get the whole thing kind of working together. And then maybe Jimmy Garoppolo brings you in, the AFC is pretty difficult here. So this is an opportunity. He went to a Super Bowl. This is an experience that could be.
Yeah, but Jimmy G's had a supporting cast, and we've seen what his ceiling is. It's the same thing with Bridgewater. We know what their ceiling is. They're low-end NFL starters. We don't know what Tua's ceiling is. Like, this just doesn't make sense. If you're going to move off of Tua, you go for a sure thing. Why would you move off him for a low-end NFL starter? Jimmy G's not changing the narrative. Jimmy G's not changing the game.
Helpful in bridging the gap, and a guy like Tua who's had very unstable, he started, then he didn't start, then he started, then he didn't. So I actually think in this case, they have shown they want to win now, bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, see if that happens.
But to be fair, did he have the pieces around him? Did he have the offensive line? Did he have the protection? They tried to bring in some receivers. They brought in other players.
Bring them both in.
And when you look at the skill set and how you break down and evaluate these quarterbacks,
here comes the logic.
If you're going to run that style system, which they ran in San Fran, do you really need to bring Jimmy G in? Because Tua can carry the load. And if you're talking about throwing the football, those situations where we wanted to see those 4-minute drives, okay, take care of the ball, 2-minute situations. Forget the run now. They've taken away the run. We've got to throw the ball and move down the field. Like, we don't know. We know what we've seen with Jimmy G. We've seen that. And I get it. Like, bringing a guy that's proven with experience in our system, but here's a guy that can flourish in our system. So let's do everything we can to put those pieces around him like Jimmy G had and see if he can do it.
Maybe we'll see if the Dolphins think that, like, this is Super Bowl year or not, right? They just spend all this money.
I don't agree
but the defense still, there's other pieces I think that still needs to be upgraded, but I see what you're saying. I agree with you.
I agree with him there. Center, inside linebacker, and right tackle. But other than those three holes, what hole do we really have? And if you sign Tyrann Mathieu and you're going to be playing him in the box in a linebacker hybrid role, then really, and I think they can get something out of Austin Jackson, and I think Dieter could be fine with them. Now we can upgrade Dieter, and I think they'll bring in Alec Lindstrom in the draft to compete with him, but really we don't have very many glaring holes. So, I've already said to you, in 2026, Tyreek Hill, his cap, it goes up to $50.1 million. There's no way we're seeing that. That tells you that 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, they're trying to win in that 4-year window. So See, but now I've gone from totally, you see the first couple clips were like, okay, we're not really, and now we're trying to get pushback on the narrative. So now let's start people getting pushback a little bit. All right. And I'm going to show you what Eric Mangini had to say and what Chris Broussard had to say on FS1 the next day. And because Chris Broussard, again, kind of pushes back on everything Mangini said the next day. And I want everyone to see this.
Coach, you have no faith in Tua? Like, you're completely out on Tua?
No, that's not what I'm saying, but I have no time for the woe is me narrative. That he didn't have weapons and the coach didn't believe in him and the owner didn't believe in him. Look.
But the coach didn't believe in him. But he didn't have weapons. He had Jalen Waddle. His next best consistent receiver was like Mac Hollins. What are we talking about here? Like, so what? We're just throwing the context out of the window. Context does not matter. Context means absolutely nothing. Notice how you didn't mention the offensive line. But even your coach alone not believing you. That's a pretty big thing to have to deal with. It broke Baker down in under 24 hours. Tua had to put up with it for over a year. Are you serious? Like, what? Like, see, this is why I always say context matters. But Eric Mangini's up here saying, well, I coach at the NFL level, so context doesn't matter. Okay.
Look, when you draft a guy that high, you want to make it work from a coaching standpoint, from an ownership standpoint, from a GM standpoint. You want to make that guy.
So why are the GM and the owner trying to make it work with the new coach? But it was just the old coach that didn't want to make it work. Yeah, you're right. They all wanted to make it work, and I'm sure at one point Flores wanted to make it work. But it seems like our coach and our GM and our owner, in the end, were the ones who wanted to make it work, not the coach, or else he'd be here. Am I wrong or am I right?
As successful as possible, but you also do get to a point where if it's not working, you've got to think about what's next, and that seems where Miami was headed. Now
well, that's where we are. We're in it that if it doesn't work in year 3, we've got 2 first-round picks. We're moving off of this. Just because they don't have the microwave mentality of all of you guys, and just because Chris Grier and Stephen Ross saw what Tua could do in November, and they said, hey, he could have that November where he was top 5 in a lot of major statistical categories, and he could do that with the distraction, with dealing with the coach, with the lack of weapons around him. What could he do with a coaching staff that believes in him, a coaching staff that puts proper personnel around him, and a scheme that fits him? Remember, when everyone was saying, I'd love to see him under Sean Payton, I was the guy saying, I'd love to see him under Kyle Shanahan. Remember, I've been saying this since day one. It's because he ran an offense in Alabama and Sarkisian that was based off of Shanahan principles, fundamentals, and concepts.
pivoted, and they've gone and got him another great weapon. So
another great weapon. Buddy, they gave him one great weapon last year. That was Jalen Waddle. I think we all can admit we like Gesicki. We're intrigued by what he brings to the table. But after the Ravens game last year, Gesicki was not very good. Let's not lie to ourselves right now. Let's not lie to ourselves right now. He disappeared.
this is either going to work fantastically or they're going to be moving on from Tua in very short order.
Wow. See,
and we all know by the end of year 3, they're moving on or they're moving forward.
So
this is now the next day. This is what Chris Broussard had to say on First Things First.
He's a guy, and I just think the criticism of him has been largely unfair. He's a guy that's gone 13-8, and I know Nick will write it off as, oh, QB wins. It's relevant. He's gone 13-8 in his 2 seasons as a starter
See how
with Miami.
turned it all
right, that's
Tua?
a franchise that hadn't made the playoffs in the 3 years before he got there. That's a franchise that had a coach who didn't believe in him and an owner who allegedly wanted to tank games. Oh, yeah, and the worst offensive line in football, according to Pro Football Focus. So with all of that, he still was able to be serviceable and go 13-8. Now you give him these weapons, not only the weapons on the outside, Hill and Cedric Wilson and Jalen Waddle, but they added the 2 running backs, Edmonds and Mostert. They got a good tight end. They strengthened the offensive line. All right, so I do think he's going to be able to make this work. I'm not convinced he can't throw the long ball because he never had the time to throw the long ball.
Yep.
Doesn't have a cannon for an arm, but I think he can do that. And in the quick, short pass game that Mike McDaniel wants to run, he'll get the ball to his playmakers, and they will make things happen after the catch. So, Nick, I do think it's going to work. And if the AFC West and North beat up on each other, then I think they'll also be a playoff contender because I do think they're better than New England and second only to Buffalo in that.
So, I agree. Preach! Tell me Chris Broussard was not 110% right with everything he just said. And all it took was logic. This guy summarized it. Everything that's wrong with everything that everyone's been saying in like a minute. Shout out to Chris Broussard, homie. I know you love the Fly Jordans. If I ever see you, pair on me, buddy. Pair on me. So, and let's end this on a real high note. Actually, 2 high notes. Shout out to the Queen of Thickness, Joy Taylor. You know what time it is. Sending someone out to my girl out there. She actually had some very positive things to say.
Having solid wide receivers and weapons. What's a better weapon than Tyreek Hill? There really aren't many on the market. So this is an aggressive move, and the money shouldn't matter if you're not paying Tua anyway. And this year, if you find out he's not the guy, next year you go make another aggressive move and get the guy. You went with an offensive coach for a reason, and now all of the doubt has to be removed from Tua, which I think is fair. That's what you should do in a situation like this. You have a young quarterback. You want to see what you have in him. He's shown the ability to be accurate. Well, now you've got Jalen Waddle. You've got Tyreek Hill. You've got Cedric Wilson. You've got an upgraded offensive line. You've got upgraded running backs. Let's go out and see what you can do. And I think that they are the number 2 team in the AFC East with this move. We talk all the...
Atta girl. See? Again. Joy Taylor, they're the number 2 team in the AFC East. You know, I think we're going to go 5-1 in the AFC East. I think we're going to sweep the Jets. We're going to sweep the Patriots. And we're going to split with the Bills. But even Joy, everything she said was right. 110%. Roll with Tua this year. See what you got. You've upgraded things for him. He's accurate. Let's go. Roll. 110%. Even Joy's getting it. Even Joy knows what's up now. But let's go to the real king. You know he's been crowned on this channel before many a times. This man, I'm buying the bar out if I ever meet him. Shout out to the homie Dan Orlovsky. Absolute king. Should be the president of the United States.
There is not a person that I am more excited for in the world other than Tua Tagovailoa outside of knowing that ESPN signed the PLL, the Premier Lacrosse League, and that they're going to be broadcasting their games. I'm so fired up for that, but equally fired up for Tua now that they've acquired Tyreek Hill. It gives him not only a person that he could push the ball downfield to, but also a guy that he can go, hey, listen, man, like, I don't want this football. You take it and go give me 50 yards. I think that their new head coach, Mike McDaniel, is going to use Tyreek Hill the same way that he and Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco used Deebo Samuel. How many different ways can I get this guy the football? Yep. And it's going to be certainly about his ability to run some of the intermediate routes. They will take deep shots with Tyreek Hill. Tua Tagovailoa can throw the ball past 40 yards, America. He could do it. It's going to be okay. But then it's going to be about just getting him the ball. How many different ways can they hand it off to him with jet sweeps, perimeter screens, using the ball out on the perimeter? Tua's strength is in two things, and we're going to break this down a little bit later in the show. Number one, the way he can use his eyes to manipulate the defense while also being ready to throw the football. That goes back to that getting me the ball in space comment that Tyreek Hill made, and then living in that RPO, that run pass option game that the Dolphins do really well, that Tua is the best quarterback in the NFL doing. I think that's going to be the focal point for Mike McDaniel with Tua Tagovailoa this offseason and leading into this season.
Okay, very interesting there. Jeremy Farrell, one of the reasons I say that is because we looked at this deal yesterday and we wondered what this deal means for Tua if this team doesn't win. So are these offseason moves for the Dolphins, is it sort of a referendum on Tua?
It's not solely a referendum on Tua. It's a byproduct of a team that had to rebuild on offense, just got an offensive-minded head coach, and didn't have great personnel on that side of the ball. They had a defensive-minded coach in Brian Flores. Offensive line was just okay. They had Jalen Waddle, but not enough around them. With Mike McDaniel, let it loose. This isn't the Dolphins putting Tua on blast, saying, okay, well, you better get this going in year 3. Like, he's played 23 games. They know largely what he is. And you heard Tyreek Hill, you heard Dan say it, very accurate, good touch on the ball. Can he drive the ball vertically? I think that the Dolphins' stance is, hey, this will help him do that. Whatever parts of his game that he needs to refine, we now have the personnel in place to make that happen.
So there you go. Right there. Dolphins aren't putting him on blast. They're helping him refine aspects of his game. And that's the plan with what they're doing. And, shout out to the, Joy, Chris Broussard, the Get Up crew, for bringing some freaking sense, logic, and reason to these big platforms, because Lord knows they needed it. Good God Almighty. Absolutely painful to watch sometimes. And, Barry Jackson actually, put out an article talking about it, and this is what Barry actually had to say, because he addressed it too. Shout out to homie Barry Jackson. Everyone knows I think very highly of him, but Barry said analysts turned Dolphins Hill pickup into referendum on Tagovailoa, and it's enough already. Tyreek Hill hadn't even been a Dolphin for an hour when the narrative predictably turned to who else? Tua Tagovailoa. If Tua doesn't become the same dude who saw in Alabama, it's time to move on, former safety Ryan Clark bellowed. Former Dolphins executive Mike Tannenbaum said it's reasonable to think by Halloween you could see Teddy Bridgewater taking over for Tua if there are any bumps in the road. Multiple local columnists announced that Tagovailoa is out of excuses. And why exactly is any of this news? Everybody knows that Tagovailoa must be better in year 3 to be viewed as a long-term franchise quarterback. The Dolphins augmenting the offense around him doesn't change any of that, or increase the pressure on Tagovailoa, or stop any excuses that Tagovailoa himself has never made. We understand ESPN zeroing in on the Tagovailoa angle in analyzing the Hill trade. Quarterback talk and drama is what ESPN believes drives viewership on studio shows. Tannenbaum, who has done excellent work transitioning to a broadcasting job, was particularly tough on Tagovailoa. Outside of Davis Mills and Mitch Trubisky, I'm not sure what other quarterback Tua would be in front of in the AFC, he said. Tua has missed 10 games. His play has been average at best. He has trouble seeing the middle of the field and can't get the ball downfield consistently. With Jalen Waddle on the hill, he has no excuse. Of all the quarterbacks in the NFL, he has more pressure on him than anyone, and Bridgewater is a very capable quarterback. It's not unreasonable to think he could be playing sometime by midseason. Sooner than later, if Tua hits any bump in the road, given everything he has to work with, my concern is Tua was the 23rd in the NFL last season in yards per pass attempt. He struggles to get the ball downfield consistently. And, consistency is obviously something I pointed out, but also, let's be honest, first half of the season, first 9 games of the season, even Waddle, he wasn't getting targeted behind. I mean, go look at what Brissett's air yards per attempt was. It's not going to blow you away either. It was designed. Coach Mike McDaniel will probably try to move the pocket, cut the field in half. We have a lot of plays for Waddle and Hill that are catch and runs that plays to his strength and try to maximize to his ability that way. There are no more excuses. They're giving him everything a quarterback could want and then some. Clark chimed in. The Dolphins will know by the end of the season if Tua is their franchise quarterback. There are no more excuses. Everyone will be saying, what's the excuse now, Tua? But again, where is its excuse narrative coming from? Tagovailoa has never blamed his inconsistent play on anyone else. Some Tagovailoa supporters cited the lack of a sturdy offensive line and substantial running game, and that's justified. Thank you very much, Barry. Beyond a handful of league quarterbacks, who exactly would have thrived with an offensive line that yielded 247 pressures and a running game that averaged 3.5 yards per carry? Tagovailoa hasn't been great, but he hasn't been awful either. He's 13-8 as a starter, and his first 16 start passer rating topped those of Baker Mayfield, Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Kyler Murray, Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz, Derek Carr, Ryan Tannehill, Matt Stafford, and Josh Allen. And he did it with nothing. Now that we've given him this personnel, now that we've given him this offensive line, this staff, what's his winning percentage going to go from 64% up to 80%? Like, if he was giving us what he was giving us and flashing at what he was flashing at with all those deficiencies on offense, what's he going to give us now? Tagovailoa's 66.7 completion percentage in his first 16 starts. It's 67% if his 2 games off the bench are included. Ranked second amongst arguably the NFL's top 20 current quarterbacks behind only Dak Prescott. Tagovailoa threw only 11 interceptions in his first 16 starts, which is tied with Ryan and Justin Herbert for 5th fewest picks among those 20 quarterbacks. In his first 2 years, he has been much better, an 88.8 rating, than Trevor Lawrence in his first season, and nobody is subjecting Lawrence to the type of scrutiny that Tagovailoa endures. Tagovailoa converted third downs into first downs 46% of the time last season, which was 5th best in the NFL. Of course, Tagovailoa must be better, but I'm not sure why it's being framed in such a negative light, as if he's borderline bust when he's nothing close to that, which I've been trying to tell all y'all. If this season's a disaster, and I hope it's not, Tua is likely gone, Kyle Brandt said. We already have doubts about your ability to stay healthy and your arm strength. He was a nice little side story from the NFL for a couple of years. Now he's pivotal. He's part of a massive conversation. If you can't drive this Ferrari, we can't keep going with you. Heck, NFL Cynthia Froyline went as far as to say the Dolphins should trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, which I showed you. Tua has what he needs. Teddy Bruschi said all he does is shorten the leash. Conclusion time is coming. If you don't show me what you've got, all the pieces we've given you, they might be thinking, is this guy not the one to do it for us? We're building our team for the next guy that's going to come in. That, I'm sure, is the thought process for Miami. The pressure is on. It's show us what you got, kid. We put everything around you. I doubt the Dolphins are thinking that they're building our team for the next guy to come in. If Tagovailoa fails, then Miami has a draft ammunition to move up and draft a quarterback. But enough with the excuses narratives. He's the most talented quarterback this franchise has had since Dan Marino, and his first 2 years were strong enough to earn a third. Acquiring Hill and Terron Armstead and the other new offensive pieces doesn't raise pressure on Tua. There was already the understood expectation that he would either improve in 22 or the Dolphins would look elsewhere for the quarterback. So why can't the Dolphins fans just enjoy the addition of one of the NFL's best playmakers without it all being about Tua? And I agree. That's the other thing. And you guys know I believe in Tua as much as anyone out here. But why does everything have to pivot back in? Why can't we just bask in the glory of what our GM's done, of what we've added to this offense? Like, that we see the vision coming to fruition right now. Why can't we bask in that? So I don't know, man. I'm not a fan. It's brutal. I just want to enjoy what's going on right now. I just want to enjoy it. So, Irving, the intermediate passing game was more than just his mechanics and his footwork. I've highlighted his footwork too, but also with how he bulked up and the strength he acquired last offseason, it affected his touch, and he was having a problem with dagger throws even during the offseason. That's why this season him and Nick Hicks are actually working on leaning him out a little bit, and that was because the Dolphins organization had asked him when he went into training with Nick Hicks, they wanted him to bulk up a bit more, so it actually affected his touch, especially over the intermediate level. That was a big issue for him. I've actually had that conversation with TD and even told TD that too. So, yeah. All right, but you speak of Tyreek Hill and what we've added to this, and guys, do we have the most explosive duo in the NFL? Well, I think we do, and I think we actually have a more explosive duo than what the Marx brothers were. And NFL came out with the top 5 most explosive duos, and they had Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle listed as number 1, with Deebo and Deebo right behind them, and then Adams and Waller behind them, and then Kupp and Robinson behind them, and then Metcalf and Lockett at number 5. I totally agree with this. I do think we have the big. I do think we have the most explosive duo in the NFL, and with that, I mean, I think we're a playoff team. When you add in where our offensive line is currently at, when you add in the players behind these guys in the pecking order, I truly believe we are currently a playoff team. And, it's nice to see the recognition, man. It's nice to see the positive. It's just a nice change to have somewhat of a positive outlook from the media, even though those are out there trying to make it about Tua and trying to tear Tua down right now, which I just don't get, because, I mean, hey, you got a guy, you look at him right now, his completion percentage, he went up 3.7 points in his completion percentage from year 1 to year 2. Obviously he had more yards because he had, more attempts, right? He had about 98 more attempts. But I mean, even his adjusted completion percentage went up from 74.2% to 75.3%. So you see there's a lot of stuff going up for him. The pressures went up against, but actually his sacks stayed the same, and his actually pressure to sack percentage went down from 21.1% in year 1 to 14.4%, when his time to throw was about the same. In year 1 he was 2.52, in year 2 he was 2.53. So he improved in a lot of areas. I mean, his yards per attempt went up. His average depth of target went down by like half a yard again, but that was also the system, right? And the first half of the season really hurt that. So when he was playing. So, and again, I said you could have an average, you could have air yard average of 5 yards on each throw, and you just get it to Tyreek, he's going to take some of those to the house. He's that special. But I do agree. I do think we have the most explosive duo in the NFL, and potentially one of the most explosive duos ever. If everything comes together, man, they could be as special as any combo that's ever been in the NFL. I truly believe that. I really, really, truly do believe that. And what did it cost us? I know the Thanos meme might tell us everything, but when you look at the most guaranteed money spent this offseason, the Miami Dolphins are currently number 3 in the NFL. They've handed out about $195.3 million worth of guaranteed money, which is kind of crazy because the Cleveland Brown, like 240, 230 of that 240 is all Deshaun Watson for the Cleveland Browns. That's one player. But you look at the Miami Dolphins have given out almost $200 million of guaranteed money this offseason. Stephen Ross has once again opened his checkbook. You have to give him props. I know we all got our issues with him, but man, the guy has totally dove headfirst into McDaniel's vision and said, here you go. Here's the checkbook. Go execute with Grier. You got to give props. You got to show love by that. Personally, I think it's a big look. It's good to have an owner that is willing to open up the pocketbooks that much every time, you've got either someone coming in with a new vision or part of that vision that needs to be executed. So shout out to Stephen Ross, man. Absolutely huge. We know we all have our issues with him, but one issue I think we can all agree we don't have is he is never cheap. Grier might do some bargain bin shopping here and then, but that's not because Ross ain't willing to pay. So you look that's huge stuff right there. Huge stuff. Speaking of you know, Chris Grier, an interesting article came out from PFF, and it actually said which general managers are the best at draft day trades. And it says, they got a little chart here. They use the Fitzgerald Spielberger chart to determine each draft pick's value and look on a per draft per basis. Due to analytics utilization with draft preparation being a recent phenomenon, we will only consider the past 5 drafts from 2017 to 2021. So, you look at this, they basically took all of this stuff in, and if you look at it here, it tells you above the red dashed line. So here means the front office regimes tend to gain more value on their trade downs than lose value when they trade up. Below the red dashed line, it denotes the opposite. So up here, they gain value on the trade downs more than they lose value on trade ups. Right here on the bottom, they lose value on trade ups and don't gain as much value on trade downs. So you look at the best general managers at draft day trades, and Chris Grier falls right in there. If you see it, AVGPD says average value gain per draft, and Chris Grier is at about 231.2. And way off of what the Carolina Panthers are at right now. But he's top 10 right now considered on draft day trades. And you roll down here, it's got explanations for each one. And we'll roll to Chris Grier, who I believe is number 8. I told y'all Joe Douglas would be that dude. He's number 7. Chris Grier is number 8. So it says best trade down was Trey Lance at pick 3. He gained 19, and they're going off the chart, right? They're going off the Johnson chart, right? The value chart. So he gained 1,983 points. The worst trade up was Jalen Waddle. He lost 807 points. Explanation from the 27 to 2019 drafts, Grier follows the same overarching trend as light. Most of the trades were menial, and he did not engage in the practice very often. This changed in the 2020 NFL draft, where Grier became a GM engaged in a form of book balancing. He traded the right to select Jordan Love in 2020 and Lance in 2021. And then his essential trade-ups essentially had equivalent trade value. In 2020, he transformed this into Curtis Weaver and Solomon McKinley. And in 2021, he turned it into Waddle and Eichenberg. So if you look at all the GMs in the league right now, by their scaling of and charting on draft day trades, Chris Grier is actually the 8th best. And I do personally think, the reason why I want to show you guys this too, is I personally think they're going to trade up from 102. I don't think they're going to sit there at 102 and make a pick. I really don't. I don't see that happening. Shout out to Darth Logan. He said, smash the like button, subscribe to our man Reason. Appreciate you, homie. Yeah, I don't see them sitting at 102. Exactly, Hilberto. You're bang on. Alex Smith. Exactly. You're right there. So, Chris Grier, got to give him props. Even on draft day trades, he's one of the better in the NFL. Top 10 at least right now. And then a couple little notes here for you guys. In case you didn't know and didn't see, the Miami Dolphins, they converted $13.255 million Byron Jones's base salary into a signing bonus, created $10.604 million in cap space. Team also added $750K in cap by reworking the contract of Clayton Fedulum, which I was surprised they kept him. And obviously with some major recent ads, Miami needed flexibility. Over the cap right now, they have us listed at $13.996 million in cap space. That said, they still have not put in Terron Armstead's numbers. So right now they have us listed at about $13.996 million. We're not going to need very much for our draft class now. And obviously Terron Armstead money needs to be plugged in. So I expect some other stuff to be coming. Obviously they're working on moving DVP's contract right now. And I do think that's going to happen because I don't see them paying him $6 million to be wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5, depending on how you want to rank Lynn Bowden. Shout out to Evan. He said, "Did you get the picture I tagged you in on Twitter?" No, I did not. Let me see here. But yeah, I do not see them paying Devontae now that they've added. It doesn't make sense. So personally, I know the reason why he hasn't been shipped out is, I heard they were dangling him in the Deebo deal. So we'll see if they bite. If they don't, I expect him to get moved off to another team. I know the Packers, Eagles, and Ravens are interested. The Ravens were looking into him at the deadline last year. So we'll see how that moves, And remember, they clear up about $6 million if they move him. So it makes sense that they're probably going to try and move him. So, all right, continuing on though, just to keep you guys updated, two little things here. Number one, there's nothing happening between Tom Brady and the Dolphins, according to a source. This is from Jeff Howe of The Athletic. He's also been recruiting free agents to the Bucs, which feels relevant here. Carry on. So that's what Jeff Howe had to say. And then Barry Jackson also checked in, and Barry Jackson had to say this. And remember, I told you guys, as much as I gave Arnold props, Dale Arnold, for being the guy who broke it, the Bucs and Brady deal a couple years ago. He also did say, well, it may or may not happen, but they are working on it. So very open-ended, right? That's what I said when he said that. But the Dolphins will add center at some point. There's no big financial allocation at the position in the works right now. So that kind of gives us an answer on Treader. Lower price options or a trade, certainly options. And I've been told to disregard Brady Miami thing you may have seen from Boston Reporter, nothing brewing. So I think they're going to add Alec Lindstrom in the draft. If Treader wants to get paid, clearly that tells you they're not paying Treader. So, I don't know if that's going to really happen. I don't know if that's a possibility, man. Treader. I haven't heard much about his name on the market. So I don't know if that's really going to go down. But, hey, guys, that's your update on everything going on in the Dolphins world. And, I know the media is out here trying to pivot about Tyreek, but don't let them take the fun out of what we did, out of what Grier did, out of the vision coming together with Mike McDaniel. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy everything that's happening right now. We've earned the team that's getting put together right now. And I cannot wait to watch it get unleashed on the NFL. I really can't. But guys, until next time, I'll probably see you guys back here on Monday night. Here's the schedule. Okay, so here we go. This week, I'm going to drop the inside linebacker. The week after, we're going to do right tackle or center. The week after that, we're going to do that. After the draft is done, I am going to drop film studies on Tyreek Hill and Terran Armstead. All right, so we'll drop that content after the draft. But those will be coming. And I'm also going to do a film study on Jalen Waddle's rookie season, and we're going to talk about Jalen Waddle's rookie season. All right, so we got 3 more big boards coming for you, and after the big boards are done, we're going to do some mock drafts, and and we're going to have some draft analysts on here. We're about to enter draft season, but guys, I'm going to be back on Monday night. Over 700 of you still in the room. Smash that like button, subscribe if you're new. I appreciate each and every one of you joining me for some of your Saturday night. And until next time, everyone, enjoy your weekend. Stay happy, healthy, safe, and blessed. And as always, you already know what time it is, baby. Fins up all day, every day. Let's go, baby. And shout out, before I get out of here, shout out to 1017 man. He says, I live in Bill's territory, and these guys are acting like they're not worried, but best believe they are, and I could tell, and they should be. Oh, they will be by the season's end, because we coming for that division title. Fins up, baby. I dropped the link. Fins up. See y'all